Today's session is titled On the Other Side of Grief, and it will be led by Prentice Hempo. Prentice is a therapist, a somatics teacher, facilitator, political organizer, writer, and the founder of the Embodiment Institute. They are unearthing the connections between healing, community accountability, and our most inspired visions for social transformation. Before founding the Embodiment Institute, Prentice was the Healing Justice Director at Black Lives Matter Global Network, a lead somatics teacher for many years committed to bringing politicized somatics to movement building. Prentice holds an MA in clinical psychology, has worked in low-cost mental health clinics, offered therapeutic services to marginalized people. She walks the walk. They are also the host and creator of the podcast, Finding Our Way. Please check it out. We at LOCA are big fans of theirs. Welcome, Prentice.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And I feel really grateful to be in this space and already really humbled by what I was able to receive from the last session. So thank you. And we're going to do some practice together today. Before I kind of start this point in the agenda, I always want to acknowledge that even though we are virtual, even though we can't really see each other and everyone who's here and may not have relationships with everyone who's here, we are still creating this space together. And in a way, these virtual settings allow us to kind of understand that what creates space, in part, is how much we bring our presence to it, how much we bring ourselves into this space to co-create it. So I just want to take a moment for each person to invite themselves even more or invite themselves again to gather together here. To prepare yourselves not only to receive, but to contribute through your presence and attention, through your energy to this space. So inviting yourself in and inviting the other folks who are here into this space, into this practice together. I find that there's like a shift that I can do in my body that makes me receptive even when I can't see people, though I do invite you all and will invite you through the practice to drop some things into chat, but feel free to engage in the space how you would like to. So I want to make an offering here around grief and an offering of a bit of practice too. Before I move into the practice, I want to set some context, which I will share through words, but I invite you to listen with your full self or as much as you can. So noticing as I share, as I speak, what parts resonate with you, what parts challenge you, bother you, excite you, that kind of listening to and attention to what's happening in your own being is really important for us to process and also be in this exchange together. So my work is around embodiment, and one of the shorthand ways that I think about embodiment or talk about it is really about us becoming able to face what is, becoming the bodies and the beings that can be present with what actually is, that we can turn and face what actually is. And in that, allowing ourselves to feel our loss, to feel also our joy, to be with the sensations that are in our bodies, that are our bodies in part, to present sensation, to presence sensations as knowledge, as wisdom, as ancestral and generational wisdom. And because I think it's important that we be able to feel our lives. And I'll talk about this some more, but part of how I think we come to this moment of so many compounding crises is because we have been incentivized away from feeling our lives. And I often say that I'm not necessarily about everybody feeling good all the time, though I would love that in a way. But what I am deeply concerned with is our ability to feel our lives, to feel the highs and the lows, to feel the joy and the despair, to feel the pleasure and the sadness, to feel our lives in a measure that is equitable, and a measure that makes sense. So no one is sort of being forced to feel certain things so that other people don't have to feel those things, but that we are able to feel the texture of our lives and the range of things possible for each of us in our lives. That to me has something to do with this question of embodiment. So my sense coming to you all and coming to this space is that there's a lot of care. Just listening to the last portion of the session, there's so much care and intention here, from how people have designed this space to the content of it. And I want to bring some attention to the fact that we live in, many of us in societies and inside of cultures that have been heavily shaped by capitalism, by imperialism, by militarism, and the way that these forces attempt to turn life into object. Will exploit bodies, will exploit the earth for the sake of profit. And that in order to do that, part of what is necessary inside of these systems and in these forces is the suppression of feeling. A lot is possible when we don't feel what is. A lot more is possible when we don't feel what is in the trajectory of exploitation. So many of us have been encouraged to suppress our feeling or sever our relationships and the intimacy that's possible between us, the love that is possible between us, and to stifle feeling through all the many ways, all the many options we have to numbing our feelings. So we're kind of incentivized away from this feeling so that what we pay attention to, what we make possible is this exploitation. So for me and for our work, this face of our feeling and our grief isn't a distraction from real work, but it is one of the seeds of real revolutionary action, is to be able to feel what is in our lives and our grief. Want to say that the work of coming alive to our feeling is a very intimate and depthful work, especially when there's been so much encouragement to ignore, to turn away. But I believe that when we don't feel, it kind of moves us more towards crisis, quickens death for a lot of people around the world, for many of us. And it keeps us from these experiences of love and of intimacy, of connection. So I want to bring us into a little bit of feeling to surface and presence what may be here, what grief may be here, what loss may be here. Loss being a part of what it means to be alive. We lose, we grow, we lose, we connect, things change. And our denial of that and our numbing to that process keeps so many of us unable to take clear action, unable to be with one another. And it keeps us, I think, as a species from maturing, from really facing into this time. So I want to really practice with our bodies so we can, some of us, I know I have a tendency at times to be intellectual about this. So I want to invite us into an embodied experience of this. And I'm going to be speaking words as I have been. And again, the reminder is to, maybe the invitation is to listen from somewhere deeper than your head. Maybe your gut. See if your gut can be soft and receive the words from that place. I'm going to ask you to drop in. So if there are parts of your attention that are elsewhere or in some earlier part of the day or in some future part of the day, see if you can bring those parts of yourself back in. Starting to move into your interior, into the stuff of your own life. Notice, if you can, any sensations that are already present for you. And when I say sensations, you might notice temperature changes on your body. You might notice tightening. You might notice places where you feel nothing. You may notice bracing. Whatever it is, just start to kind of map your own sensations in your body. Turning the volume up on that feeling self. And noticing if sensations are hard for you to identify. You might notice when you start to pay attention to a part of your body, the thought emerges. Notice the quality of your thoughts. Good. Now we're really going to work with the gut, the belly, the center. And some of you may be familiar with the kind of box breath. If not, I'm going to describe it to you. But I think it's a really useful breath for getting underneath what sometimes our breath might be helping us to avoid, what feeling might sit just underneath our deeper breath. So the way this breath works is that I'm in a second going to do this with you, but we'll inhale and then we'll hold it at the top for 4 beats. And then we'll exhale, empty, and then hold at the bottom for 4 beats. We're going to do that a few times together. So if you want to go ahead together, let's inhale through our noses. Hold. Release. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Release. Hold. Again, inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. And keep practicing on your time. You may need a deeper breath or a shorter breath, but holding at the top and then holding again at the bottom once you've emptied. You might start to put a hand on your belly here. And on the next exhale, just offer the question to yourself, what grief sits at the bottom of my belly? What loss sits at the bottom of my belly? The bottom of that breath. And you can let go of the counting. If your breath is able to drop in. Is there grief? Is there loss? That you're often breathing above or operating above, but is there? Can you let yourself know it? And then I want to ask if you're willing to just offer to the chat and to this collective space some words about what grief you're holding. It can be just a couple words, one word, brief phrase, but for those willing, what is sitting at the bottom of your breath? Yeah. Loss of home, grief connected to complicity, loss of closeness with family, loss of joy, creatures in the ocean, feeling of doom, grandchildren. Yeah. And as it comes in, just notice what happens inside of you as you witness what other people are holding, as you share what you are holding. Notice where you might want to pull away or not feel. And then notice how we are all holding some piece of this grief, that there's a connection even in this loss or even in this pain that we are feeling. So much loss. Paths that are closed off, loss of life too soon, safety, not addressing the magnitude of what is, disconnection from each other, loss of biodiversity. Yeah. Yeah. Pollinators, feeling also with the animals, our kindred, our community of other living beings, also shelter and refuge. Presencing this grief. Most of the time in our embodiment work, we are working towards having bodies that can hold this, but also remembering that a lot of things can't be held alone, can't be held with one body. And so these myths of individualism that say that we can process these things alone are just that, I think, myths, that things of this magnitude are to be felt together. Yeah. There are people suffering now. Connecting with each other. Even when we start to feel that overwhelm or that pulling away, how do we move towards the connection that we have here? Letting ourselves breathe with it. Breathe with this reality. Thank you all for sharing so much of that. And thank you all for practicing with this very real, these real conditions that we are in. Some people are in them more than others. Some animals are in them more than our animal species. And let's, through our body here, soften. We talk about kind of our width as being one of the ways that we can connect. Sometimes when we are very afraid, we want to curl in, fold in. And it's okay to be afraid. And we want to see if we can still breathe into bodies that are able to connect with each other, because we will need to connect with each other. We do need to connect with each other for safety, for respite, and also for action. So letting our fear be here. Let's also see if we can soften in our eyes, soften our faces and our throats. And if there are tears, let them move, let them fall. Letting the space around our hearts open. Can the tissues in your chest soften? In your solar plexus and your belly, let it soften. All the way down your body, your pelvis, your legs. And feel here how we are connected to one another. Feel here your permeability, that you are boundaried through skin, through the contours of who you are, but you are also a part of this, part of each other, part of our larger ecosystem. I want to take another moment. We're going to do another share here, but dropping back into your belly, bringing all that was shared in there. Breathing and allowing what is true to be true. And letting the waves run through me in this moment so that I'm not trying to operate above them. But I'm allowing myself to be seated in what is with you all. And I want to offer this question to our bellies and to the bottom of our breath here. What does this grief that you feel and are holding, what does it tell you about what you love? What does it tell you about who you love? What does it tell you about love? And just let that work on you. There's not a right answer to this. But we do know the deep relationship grief has to love. That it is one expression, in a way, of our love. So when you're ready, and if you're ready, if you want to share with the group, there's something you want to drop in the chat box here too about what this grief, or what these sensations of grief are also telling you about love and who you love. You can also offer that here to the group. deepest connection. Love is the most important power and only truth. Loving more deeply than we let ourselves. Love is infinite and grief can be trusted. Ashe. Liberation in love. Generosity of love. Oh, so much wisdom in this chat. Reflections on love being deeper than we usually feel or have access to. The inner child in the river being the mother. Love is hope. Yes. Love is the path everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Loving even people we've never met. Loving each other, even though we don't know each other. That's right. Love can't exist, or grief can't exist without love. Love can make it all worth it, even the hardest things. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Deserving to love, love and grief being bonded. Love is worth the grief. Thank you all. There's so much wisdom in what each of you shared. I want to bring one more dimension. I know we're moving towards close. I don't want to go over time. There's one more dimension that I want to offer that kind of resources me in my own love practice, which is really allowing my body to settle in this dimension and my practice of somatics that we call depth, and feeling into kind of what has come before us, what pours into us now. It can be ancestors, it can be our microbial ancestors, all the learning and wisdom that makes it so we can sit here in this way and settle into that, letting my back body kind of receive that wisdom. Letting myself be loved in a way by what has come before me. And then feeling myself in the now, also in my own cycle of birth and death, being alive in this way, and also preparing, hopefully, to be a good ancestor to whatever life exists in my species and beyond. So I want to thank you all for just practicing with me and feeling those sides of what is. And I hope that it can serve you as you move into this work and this time together. I'm so grateful to each of you for turning and facing into these conversations and these questions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Prentice. That was incredible. So powerful, so needed, so necessary. We are so grateful for your wisdom, for allowing us to feel. I think we started very heady and kind of have dropped to our hearts with the last two sessions. And I think my personal takeaway is not to shut off that grief, which we do so often, which I do all the time to get work done. And that it is just an expression of my love for all of life, all of my fellow humans and all other non-human beings. So thank you from the depths of my heart.